Oh, somebody's here really sticking it up, I see. What were you doing exactly? I know you said sorry, but what exactly were you doing? Because it had to be the opposite goal of what I was doing. Because there's no way. Uh, Oh my god, that's horrible. Ah! That was a bad jump. I can't even hold it. Should never went for that shit. That was ugly.
When the man comes around.
Welcome to the Filmcast review of Kraven the Hunter. Really excited to talk about this one. I'm going to read the plot summary of this movie from the internet. Kraven's complex relationship with his ruthless father starts him down a path of vengeance, motivating him to become not only the greatest hunter in the world, but also one of its most feared. This movie performed disastrously at the box office this weekend. It made only about $11 million, despite costing over $110 million.
Where was that money?
This movie.
Yeah.
I also think it's the only one of these movies to be rated R, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It's kind of one of these movies where they're like, whatever, man, we just don't care anymore. Those Deadpools make money? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try R. Yeah.
Really should have had the Venoms be the R-rated franchise, but whatever.
It's odd that they didn't go that way. But all that said, Devendra Hardawar, obviously, this Sony Marvel Spider-Verse stuff has been a mixed bag at best. Probably the only movie you could even consider calling good is the very first Venom, right?
Yeah.
But this is probably the end. So did this franchise go out with a bang or a whimper, Devendra Hardawar?
I will say this about the Sony Marvel like spin-offs for the villains. Unlike the Dark Universe, they actually made those movies. Right? The Dark Universe just threatened us with a series of movies that nobody would give a shit about. But Sony made
At the end of the day, it is impressive that Sony made these movies at all. You know,
it's they really committed to it. No, this is a terrible movie. But the weird thing is, I actually think this is a less worse movie than Madam Web. But that's just because it is directed by somebody I like and respect, J.C. Chandor, director of Margin Call and All's Lost and The Most Violent Year. I was like, what has happened to this guy? That was the thing that was like making me be like, okay, maybe there'll be something interesting or innovative here. I think there are actually a handful of action sequences that are vaguely enjoyable. I'm like, okay, there's like a barefoot chase through the streets of London. That's kind of fun. Like, okay, I'm having fun with this. And then it just like scenes where people are talking to each other. Who is Kraven the Hunter? Like, what is his motivation? Because we get a setup early on, straight to him hunting people, and there's no real explanation for why he does the things he does. I actually just don't like the character in general because the word Kraven means cowardly. It sounds cool if you're a high schooler, and it rhymes with Raven. But Kraven should not be his name. His name should be Braven. Should be something else. Should be something cool. The Kraven.
They already made that movie with Jason Momoa, by the way.
This is true. his brother is the cowardly one. His brother is Craven. His brother should be called Craven. Is the whole
But
anyway.
Devindra, different spelling. Different spelling.
Yeah, different spelling.
But his brother does incredible impersonations. He can't be
incredible
Craven.
impersonations. Like he's just like the world's best. He's gonna be great at improv. That guy. But no, this movie is baffling. I think terribly written, and yeah, just a complete waste of time for everybody involved. But at least J.C. Chandor got a paycheck.
Yeah, I'm really starting to get concerned about these guys who make these movies because like these Sony movies have taken relatively talented directors like J.C. Chandor, Daniel Espinosa.
Yeah.
I actually think Daniel Espinosa is a super talented filmmaker.
He's great.
And I don't think he's made a movie in America that you can watch since Morbius. You know, and it's like I hope these movies are not career limiting for the talented directors that kind of take them on, because that would be really unfortunate. Anyway,
What? How did that go
Devindra
in?
did not like this movie.
I
Jeff
watched
Canada, I'm
that.
really
That
curious.
didn't-
What did you
He
think
didn't
of
aim
Craven
like
the
good
Hunter?
enough. At all.
Well, Dave, I guess you could say what I
Oh,
thought.
he
of
wrote
Craven.
it slower to
It's
kind
best
of.
summed
Okay.
up in the
That's
form
crazy.
of a limerick.
Well, let's hear it, Jeff.
A goblin who flies on a glider, or a madam with powers inside her. Like Craven, they're villains, and I'm only willing to watch when they're fighting the spider.
Ooh, nice.
Nice. That was good, Jeff.
That's good.
Thanks.
It was worth watching this movie
Yeah.
just so you could make that.
Eh,
Limit.
I don't
There's
think it was.
more effort put into that than the script for this movie. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Devindra on everything. I also think this is less awful than some of its companion pieces. I think it's much less awful than Venom 3, for example, which we just talked about. I think Venom 3 is offensively bad. And this movie is just bland.
There
Right?
are
This
some
movie is
offensively bad scenes within this movie,
true.
but not as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the barefoot versus car action sequence. Fun.
Yeah.
From a just sort of a conceptual place, like the audacity of doing a scene like that.
All
and
he
then,
can do is run fast and jump. He can't fly, right?
Yeah.
So,
but he's still got to get
interesting.
that car.
yeah.
It's like a dog. Get in the car. I also have a sort of bigger issue with all of this because it's just taking some sort of vague concepts from what these characters kind of are and slapping them into situations that are completely different spiritually from what the
Right.
characters. Right. I mean, the biggest problem with all of these movies is these are villains that exist to be the antagonist to a hero, and somehow now we're transforming them into something they were never intended to be and really aren't interesting enough to be, right?
Yeah.
And and so you have to really want that. You have to really want
Yeah.
Craven the Hunter to be the hero of a story, and I don't. I
Yeah.
don't. I don't think anybody does. And so you know they do such heavy lifting to get you to try to care for this character. When what is interesting about Craven the Hunter as a character historically is the dude wants to kill Spider-Man. Like that's
They all
that's
do.
his defining principle, right?
They kind of all do is the thing. Something
He
about
wants to
Spider-Man
kill
villain.
Spider-Man real bad. Real bad. He wants to kill Spider-Man.
One prey I cannot catch.
That's right. Is
Yeah.
hey, you know, we have a vaguely animal-esque thing, and he's the guy that kills animal things, right? And he wants to
Yeah.
kill the most dangerous animal thing.
A lot of missed
Um,
opportunities to set him up to, like just squashing spiders. Ooh, really hate spiders.
Well, there is a
Like,
spider. There is a very overt spider sequence in the movie
Yeah.
that I was
Yes,
like,
that's
okay,
true.
movie, I get what you're doing, and I think this was kind of clever, maybe, but also, I feel like on some level somebody was like, this is our last one, right? Because they just throw all of the characters that they have lying around into it. You know, like he's a spider villain, and we have other spider villains who are his villains now too.
It's true.
sort of make. I don't want to spoil. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
is it obvious?
Let's wait.
to
Let's
everybody?
wait.
cares.
Let's wait till the spoilers. Let's
Okay.
wait till the spoilers.
And the
The
spider villain.
the Spider-Man villains you have been waiting to see on screen, all of them in
The
here.
spider villain that's his villain is also an animal, but there's nothing made of the fact that he's a hunter and that person
Right.
is something that hunters actually hunt. Nothing made about that, which is a weird whiff to me because it's right there. You know, you have that laid out for you, but how all of that plays out is so cumbersome and lame and uninteresting. I mean, I think there are a couple of actors who are really trying. Alessandro Nivola, it like understands the movie he's in and is just going for it, and I give him credit. But like everybody, I mean, Russell Crowe's in this movie.
Russell Crowe's
There
in this
are
Yeah.
movie.
multiple Academy Award-winning actors in this movie. Russell Crowe,
Ariana
Ariana
DeBose.
DeBose is
Yeah.
in this film.
She plays a character again from the comics that is just not remotely, and again, a very problematic character from the comics, and they try to, you know, sand off some of those rough edges. But like why are we even? What are we doing? What are we doing? Christopher Abbott is in this movie as yet another spider villain who
Fuck.
makes no sense why he's there. It's just like we have all these things we paid for. Let's put him in. Why not? We'll throw him in the movie.
Put him in.
It is, again, not as offensively bad as, for example, Venom 3, which I thought just is so dumb, relentlessly dumb that it made me angry. I can't even muster any emotion for this because, yes, there are some dumb things that happen. Yes, there are some clumsy script things, but like, it's mostly just bland and forgettable. And, you know, again, I think most people recognize that, which is why very few people went to see it. It was never worth making, and it feels like a cash grab, and there's no cash to be grabbed. So it's completely forgettable. We'll forget it instantly. And if they do a Kraven, if you want to see an awesome Kraven the Hunter, play the latest Sony video game. It has an
Spider-Man
awesome
2,
version of
yeah.
Kraven in it.
I would disagree with that. I think actually they're both bad.
He's no.
I thought it's definitely more true to the comics.
Yes.
Certainly that
Yes.
version is. But my guess is Sony forced them to put that in there, or they made some deal to
No.
put that in there.
I doubt that.
Because in my opinion, well, these things were supposed to come out at the same time, right? Kraven was supposed
But
to come out.
he bears no resemblance to the movie version.
That's
None.
true. Yeah.
In fact, it makes the movie version look worse, in my opinion, because the video game version is actually cool and interesting, and a hunter. Like, this dude, they use the term hunter to mean sort of an assassin,
Right.
but no, what's interesting is that he's an actual big game hunter. Like, that's the defining characteristic is like,
Right.
he has this code of honor and he wants to actually be the best hunter he can be. None of that is present in this movie. This movie, he's like, I was trained to be a hunter by my dad, and so now I use that to assassinate bad people.
Also,
Which is
screw
like
my dad. Yeah.
a completely different situation.
Yeah.
It's not even the same story.
I would say if you take this movie, you show it to somebody watching Kick-Ass 1, be like, Kick-Ass? It's going to turn into Kraven the Hunter. The transformation, we've talked about this, that Aaron Taylor Johnson has gone through is
Kudos to
mind-blowing.
him.
Props to him. This movie does show it off a
Dude
lot.
did some friggin' sit-ups, you know
But
what I'm
he's
saying?
been doing that for a while, too. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it will not surprise you to learn that I did not enjoy this movie very much. I was
really expecting you to, I don't know.
Zag when we were
We've had
zigging,
some
yeah.
surprises this year.
so.
Dave was gonna get on and be like, Russell Crowe saves this movie.
I mean, I think Russell Crowe is actually pretty solid.
He's fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This movie is actually kind of interesting to me because I think Kraven and Venom 3 and to some degree Madam Web, they all suffer from similar problems. And I think one of the big problems is, first of all, they all feel edited to within an inch of their lives. And what I mean, like, let me define what I mean by that. All those movies introduce more threads then they can actually pay off.
More
And in
threads.
the
I
case
see
of
what you're
Craven,
doing. Yeah.
in the case of Craven the Hunter, it's like they're introducing like a new character every 10 minutes in this movie, right? As you said, there's like, oh, now Christopher Abbott's a character in this film, and now Ariana DeBose is a character, and now like all the, and it's like, do we really need all these characters? You know, the movie's. This is, by the way, the longest Spider-Verse movie. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes. We're not counting any of the animated, you know, Beyond the Spider-Verse things in this.
The ones that have actual Spider-Verse in the title.
the one that actually has Spider-Verse in the title and are actually really good. I was watching this scene in Craven the Hunter where Craven is chasing after a car. And I made a realization during this scene about like what is wrong with these movies. So Craven's chasing after a car, and there's actually some really cool moments in that sequence because
A lot
like,
of practical work in
I
that.
gotta
yeah.
say, whenever
Yeah.
I see dude running as fast as fast-moving objects, I think that's impressive. Like when Superman does it, you know, when other like I'm just like, oh wow, that's cool. When Planet of the Apes does it, I'm like, wow, that's cool how they did that, right? And there is a scene where essentially like this car is trying to get away from Craven, and I don't remember exactly what happens, but they kind of like get him off their trail. They like drive into it, they smash him, you know, the car smashes against him, and he like falls over, and the car gets away, right?
Well, that's
And
not the
then
end of that whole
literally-
scene. But
And then literally the next scene, like
mhm.
1 or 2 shots later, the car is at a dock. At its
Yeah.
destination at this helipad, and then Craven shows up,
Yep.
and he's like, I'm here, I'm gonna take you down, car again. And I'm like this action scene, I think sums up everything wrong with these films, because
Mhm.
in a normal movie, right, you'd have there's like cadence to these action scenes. There's like an ebb and a flow. There's like, oh, intense, and then like a minute to take your breath, and then another thing happens, and then, you know, and in this movie, right, it's like Craven is fighting the car, and then Craven is bested, and then literally no more than, I'm gonna say, 15 seconds later, they're at it again. Craven's at the dock, and there's no
Mhm.
sort of downtime. There's no like cadence. There's just like, oh, do we need the scene where the car is like slowly getting away, and then people take a breath, and the people in the car think they're okay, and then all of a sudden Craven shows up out of nowhere, you know, and it's a big surprise. It's like, we don't need any of that. Just get to the action. Just get to the thing that's going on. And I feel like that's true of a lot of these Spider-Verse movies, is they just edit out all the interstitial stuff, all the in-between stuff, the people hanging out, the sort of less energetic scenes in the action set pieces. Like all these things are removed, and what
Yeah.
it ends up making the movie feel like a trailer for itself. It
It's
ends up feeling like we're just
yeah.
watching the highlight reel of whatever this movie is supposed to be.
Mhm.
And it's a very bizarre experience because most movies aren't like this.
I think
yeah.
for me, like, a better example of this phenomenon is the fact that Craven has, like, on demand his own like personal cargo plane, like a friend who like flies a cargo plane.
Right?
He
Oh,
says
yeah.
hi to her.
He says
We
hi to her,
never
and it's
see
like-
who that person is.
Yeah.
They just
Or
like
why
talk
that
over the
exists. Yeah.
headset.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
feels like a video game. That feels like a video game. Like that feels
Right,
like, oh, there's
yeah.
just a robot driving this, because it's
And
not a person
he's
that
like,
he
"Well,
has a
see you-
relationship with.
See you in the next one," and then
Who are
it's
you?
like-
What's your
Yeah.
story?
Do
Yeah.
people hire the Craven,
Yeah,
the
is this
hunter?
an app?
Yeah,
Is,
right.
is
Yeah.
what is going on exactly?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's a big problem with this movie is, you brought this up, Jeff, which is that these movies are about these villains, but in order to make a movie about a character in a conventional way, the character needs to do something that the audience can root for.
Mhm.
But
The-
I think that's a huge mistake. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
there is a world where you could have actually made a movie about a villain where they're still the villain. And I think
Yeah.
that would be a really interesting movie.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like shoehorn hero into a villain movie. It's weird, and it seems incongruous and off-putting, and also
And you
really
need to change
pat.
everything people understand about that character, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's really and it becomes very formulaic at the same time. Whereas, what if the challenge is make a movie about this horrible person? Like what is that? A movie about the villain when the hero never shows up to save the day.
Yeah.
That seems like an interesting movie.
You want Mike Lee's hard truths about Craven.
Yeah.
Just terrible person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to. I still
Yeah,
think it could be a PG-13 action movie, but like, it seems to me to be, it's basically Godzilla, right? Except on a smaller scale. It's a movie of. I mean, they turned Godzilla into.
They turned Godzilla into a good guy. Yeah, that's
the problem is that
Yeah.
they feel the need to do that instead of actually making it.
Yes. Yeah.
A more
Yeah.
interesting endeavor. Like what? Like put us in. Make it The Sopranos. Make
Jeff,
it
right.
Make it The Sopranos. Have you seen all of The Penguin?
right.
Because that is
That's
what that
I'm
show
saying.
is.
It's
Terrible
possible.
guy
Yeah,
being
it's
terrible.
possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually what they did. Yeah,
That's what they
actually
did.
with the
What they
Penguin.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did a good job with it. So, Sony should start taking some notes from the DC folks and what Matt Reeves is doing over in that
I'm telling
universe. Anyway.
And Marvel seems to be good with the heroes, and DC seems to be good with the villains.
Yeah.
Joker notwithstanding.
And Sony seems to be good with the animated Spider-Man movies. All right.
Yeah.
A few thoughts on what went wrong with Craven. Of course, we got to talk about some spoilers starting right now. Let's get to spoilers for Craven the Hunter starting right now. So, Jeff, you were talking about Chameleon, right? Like,
Yeah.
Craven's brother
That's
is
right.
Chameleon. I don't think that's canonical, by the way.
It is canonical.
Oh, it is canonical.
It's
Okay.
half brother in the comics. but
I see. I see.
Half brother is a chameleon. Yeah.
I see.
And they
I see,
say
I see.
he is the bastard child, basically,
Yeah.
in this movie.
So right, but you bring up the point of like, so is the idea that Craven and Spider-Man would like team up against him, right? But that feels like we didn't even get Craven and Spider-Man facing off against each other, right?
Right.
It's weird.
It makes no sense.
I gotta say that I actually like the Nivolo,
Mm-hmm.
Alessandro Nivola,
Mm-hmm.
Rhino.
like Rhino, and like how that affliction manifests itself.
Mhm,
The idea that
mhm.
he has this like thing hooked up to him the whole time, and then when he disconnects it, he starts like solidifying. That was cool. And then you get to the ending sequence where he faces off against Rhino, and it looks terrible.
God
Well,
awful.
also, like, why does he have horns?
Why does he have horns?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of
Because his
choices.
name's Rhino?
Yeah.
Yeah, like because they never. It was just like considered a disease. It wasn't like he had his DNA crossed with an animal
He
DNA.
wants
or
Which is
Tough
something.
the
man.
easiest line in the world to throw in the movie. Like, the only way we did it was to cross your DNA with a rhino. Oh, okay, that's why I'm called the Rhino. But no, we laboriously explain why he's called the Rhino, and it has nothing to do with being an actual rhino.
Mhm.
And then he looks like a rhino at the end.
I
Yeah,
feel
he-
really bad for the villains in this movie, guys, because first of all, Alessandro Nivola, an actor I often like, they just like they had made choices relate to his character, right? Like you gotta wear tight shirts, you gotta have this itty bitty backpack. Always
Yeah.
tight shirts, itty bitty backpack. Okay,
I
that's
actually
your
kinda like
that's what
that.
you're
He
going
looked-
for.
Yeah,
He looked like a little schoolboy.
He
who
looks
had
like a
that-
little schoolboy.
but-
And then
But
he sounds like a whiny little bastard the entire
Yeah.
time too, like just a whiny little
Well,
shit.
The
Man.
bigger transgression is his wig in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, that was very bad.
But,
What it do, shawty?
I mean, he
Can you hear me? Why you sound like that? Why you sound like that? Why you sound like that, shawty? Why is this not covering the whole? What? Hold on. Just give me a second. I'm sorry. Transform, fit the screen. What? What in the world? Did I mess up my main? Is that what's going on? What in the world? Fuck. Alexis, what did I do? I did. That's not even funny because I did. What? I guess I hide this, but then so when I come back, I have to. That's crazy. I don't know what's going on. How are you, Alexis?
He bears no resemblance to any version of the Rhino that has ever been.
Again,
Right? The Rhino is a
again,
big
yeah.
lunkhead.
I feel like I haven't
Mhm.
talked to you all
Dummy
day.
who was a henchman, a Russian henchman,
Man.
who had this experiment done on him and got fused with his suit. But now he's like the mastermind.
Now he's
the
a
smartest
mastermind.
guy in the room.
He shouldn't have a brain. The entire point is that he doesn't kind of have a brain. Shout out to the one good thing from the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, Paul Giamatti being the Rhino for 5 seconds and
Yeah.
just like giving us an Oscar level performance.
Yeah.
That's Paul Giamatti
That's the Rhino.
sold that role.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys a question. Christopher Abbott plays a character called the Foreigner.
Yeah.
Tell me what he is able to do. Tell me what his situation is from a conceptual level.
Right.
Like, what is that character?
His
My
situation
interpretation
uh-huh.
is he's able to stop time in people's minds. Like
Mm.
he's able to make them freeze while
Right.
he
he
moves
makes eye
around.
contact.
And, and
Right.
it's a superhuman ability. Is that what you're?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess
Yes.
my take is that they took a really compelling actor who is about to break at any moment and shoved him into a third tier villain role in a movie that everybody hates. My take is that made me sad when Christopher Abbott walked on screen, and I'm like, God damn, you deserve better than this, Christopher Abbott.
Well,
Like you deserve
Devindra
so
is
much more.
correct.
Yeah.
But Dave, I mean, that's what the movie is communicating.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, stopping the time is kind of right. In his, he puts people into hypnosis.
Mm.
Mhm.
That is he has no superhuman abilities, at least in
I
the
see.
comics. Who knows what the hell they're trying to do here? But in the comics, he is able to hypnotize you
Mhm.
and make you think that he is moving faster than you can see. But here it does seem like he is. There's literally no explanation for any of the shit he does. In
Doesn't
this
he
movie.
takes off his glasses? That's all you need to know.
Yeah, he just goes 1, 2, 3. But the idea behind this character is that
Right.
he hypnotizes you and convinces you that you can't see him.
Mhm.
So there's
Question for you guys: who did it better, Christopher Abbott in this movie or Colin Farrell in Daredevil? Like sub-tier Spider-Man villains, or basically
Yeah.
like villains in that universe. I have an affinity for the Colin Farrell.
I totally forgot
Bullseye.
Colin Farrell played Bullseye. I completely
he
forgot.
did. He says it all the time, Jeff. He made an old lady choke, and he's like Bullseye. He says it out loud.
Is
Yeah.
is the Foreigner white in the comics? I'm just curious about that. Like,
I mean, I think so.
'cause that
if
was
I
a little odd to me.
A little confusing.
remember
That was a little
correctly.
confusing that he's called the Foreigner. and he's
Yeah.
Christopher Abbott in the movie.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, I think
know.
the foreigner is white because he was introduced in like the early '80s, and so there was no,
He's Eastern European, very foreign.
yeah.
yeah.
And of course, Calypso is in this movie as yet another
Okay.
person, character
So
they had on hand.
I got to talk
Mhm.
about this. This movie is really bizarre too because I find all these movies fascinating, like these Spider-Man movies fascinating. I wish we had a behind the scenes of what went down for each of these, because this movie feels like a PG-13 movie
Mhm.
that was converted into a rated R film. I don't know
Mm.
why they converted it. I don't think it was worth it. Maybe they tried to make it PG-13 and there's too much killing, and so they're like, okay, well, we might as well make it rated R. But everything about the way the action is shot makes it feel PG-13. Right down to the fact that you may be aware that in PG-13 movies, you are allowed to say the F word one time. And it cannot be referenced to the sexual act.
Right.
And this movie has one F word.
I thought it had two. I think it has two.
Oh, it might have two. Yeah, maybe they were like, we might as well let this loose.
Yes, let's do this. Let it
Jeff,
ride.
But Jeff, I think you know what the one was supposed to have been if it was PG-13.
Oh yes, for sure.
Which is when Ariana DeBose kills the foreigner.
Yeah.
Right, because they explained that she's good at shooting arrows.
Yeah,
In the prior
She did some archery in school, in grade school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she's like, 3 motherfucker, and it's like,
yeah,
okay, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the F word that was
that's
going to
the
be
one
PG-13.
F word for the
That's the F word.
PG-13. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
that's
not
the F
Blade,
word.
man. If save that for Blade, basically.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
maybe they're like,
R-rated
at some
Marvel
point they
movies.
made the decision, let's just do it rated R. Oh, can we squeeze in any more F words? Yeah, we got like 1 or 2 more we can like fit in there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like architected from the ground up as an action movie.
I think they
as an R
throw
movie, I should say.
they throw Russell Crowe the opportunity to use an F word at one point, and he's like, "Fucker." Yeah.
Mm.
By the way,
Yeah.
shout out to Russell Crowe for being he's a larger man now. He's a rotund man. He has a
Yeah.
large stomach. This is a problem I'm also starting to deal with as I age. Still a movie star. Still can
Yeah.
hold that screen with his terrible Russian accent, but holding the screen. The gravity of the screen is on Russell Crowe when there's so much working against him right now. So yeah, love him.
Yeah.
Love him for that.
He owns it. He owns
owns it.
size.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Any other thoughts on Craven the Hunter? If not, I want to read this.
What's up with the post credits?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
I've heard about that.
I need to read this very important article
Mm-hmm.
from Alex Zalbin over at Comic Book Club, at comicbookclublive.com. Who he wrote an article called "Does Craven the Hunter Have an End Credit Scene?" And I gotta say, guys, this is like really important coverage that he wrote here. Okay, so here's this article. I'm gonna read excerpts from it. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but the answer to this question: no, there is no end credit scene in Craven the Hunter. Or is there? There actually is something after the credits of Craven the Hunter. Let's get into it. So, what happens after the credits of Craven the Hunter? The post-credits for Craven the Hunter explained, right? That's the headline. As soon as the credits finished on the movie, 2 guys came into the theater to clean things up. Nothing against them. There wasn't a lot to clean up since there was only 6 of us watching this movie at 2 p.m. Eastern on a Thursday. I buttoned up my coat and walked outside. The air had a snappy chill to it, and I could see the bus 2 blocks away. I was out of the movie theater. I was about to go home, and other than knowing I was going to write an article titled "Does Craven the Hunter Have an End Credit Scene?" I knew that very soon I would never have to think about Craven the Hunter ever again. So when you ask me what is after the credits for Craven the Hunter, life, my friend. The rest of your goddamn life. Free from the shackles of watching an excruciatingly boring slog of a movie. And perhaps, if we're lucky, the other thing you'll find after the credits of Craven the Hunter is no more Sony/Marvel movies. No more nonsensical plots. No more setups for future characters nobody cares about in movies that will go nowhere. And no more attempts to force a superhero universe out of the concept of what if animal blood fell inside of a person and also there were some spiders around sometimes. Freedom. That's what waits after the credits for Craven the Hunter. Pure, beautiful freedom. End quote.
It's lovely.
It's lovely. It's moving. It's powerful.
I was so happy to find out that there was no end credit scene because I left this theater so goddamn quickly. And I was at a press screening, and I zipped out of this and every other person sat there waiting. and
I was
won.
I was
won
a
that one.
cartoon
Yeah.
cloud. You remember Looney Tunes when you just like zip out in the shape of a person running away? I found the near. I was at a theater I don't normally go to. I found the nearest exit. You know, normally like sometimes theaters will have the side exits, or you can walk through the front and go back out. I was like, no, I gotta leave. I must leave this space. It is 1 a.m. coming out of Craven the Hunter.
Wow.
I must leave. I went out the nearest door I could find. Didn't know where that door was actually where it was like actually leading. I just knew it was outside. Freedom. Yes.
My co-host on DLC, Christian Spicer, told me he read a review of Craven the Hunter that I think sums it up, and it said it's the story of a man who gets a vest.
That's true. He
It's
does
true.
get the vest by
It's
the
the
end.
The
of the
process
movie.
of a
superpower-
man getting a vest.
Final shot is sitting sexy with the vest. You can't just sit. You got to like lean back, pretend you're on
He's
the
got a
GQ
vest.
cover. Yeah.
It's a hell of a vest.
Hell of a vest. Hell of a chest to show off and pecs to show off and abs
Yeah.
to show off. So yes, I get it.
I mean, I think this project was actually doomed from the start because if there's anything the last 2 weeks have shown us, it's that America cannot get behind a beautiful man who has great muscles and abs assassinating rich people that the justice system doesn't bring to justice.
We would know what to do with
Um,
them. Yeah.
America wouldn't know. So therefore, why would you ever make this movie? Like no
Yeah.
one's gonna understand how to root for a character like that. You know what I mean? So, at the end of the day, it is impressive that J.C. Chandor made a movie,
I'm
and
glad
it's
somebody
impressive
paid
that
him money.
Sony was able
Yeah.
to stretch this premise out to as many movies as they did. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.
I was born in 1982. By way of reference, that is the year Miss Pac-Man was released in arcades. Playing new games and immersing myself in my most cherished art form was my blessed routine from the 1980s until 1999, at which point I had begun to play a massively multiplayer time extractor called Asheron's Call. With my free time captured by this one computer game, and my day-to-day kidnapped by my studies in college, I had precious little time for other games for years. I stopped playing Asheron's Call for the most part in 2004, and stopped playing video games altogether in 2005 and 2006. I started up again in 2007. In 2010, I started regularly watching YouTube for the first time, and got hooked on a video podcast called NoobTube. I had written for a few websites, but never anything in the audio-visual realm. I created and uploaded my own videos about games, got snapped up by Channel Awesome for their Blistered Thumbs offshoot website, and in addition to my regular series, I was chosen to co-host its official podcast. In 2012, I changed topics and branded my work Renegade Cut for all time. In a way, I've played video games my whole life because I started so young, but there are gaps in my life as a vid kid. 2012 through 2019, barely anything. I was married for part of that time, working multiple jobs, and hobbies just took a back seat. I was adulting too hard. Since around 2020, I have rediscovered my love of games, but getting back into the scene meant understanding new concepts that were not as prevalent or did not even exist in 2012. I avoided the new terminology partially by accident. I spent a fair percentage of my time playing retro games, and when I would dare to play new games, they were usually the fruits of independent game studios. Here are my favorite games released from 2020 to 2024, and with a couple exceptions like Baldur's Gate 3, all my faves were indie games and did not contain the trappings of what I have come to understand is now called AAA gaming. Video games have once again become the primary focus of my career. I felt that having a more thorough understanding of at least the lexicon of modern gaming was prudent and necessary. Thus, armed with responsibility and fear, I scrolled through my smartphone and noticed a video game article claiming that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was, no joke, 95% off. I could purchase a 2024 AAA video game from a major publisher for the price of a sandwich, and not even a particularly good sandwich. I learned only after my purchase that Kill the Justice League shares the same continuity as the Batman Arkham games. Never played those. Gaps, remember? This is my introduction to the Arkham video game universe. Strap in. Kill the Justice League begins before beginning, installing something called anti-cheat software. We're off to the races, huh? At first blush, I mistakenly assumed that this software existed purely to prevent cheating during multiplayer, but no. This cybernetic teddy bear was given life to prevent players from modding the game in ways that could reduce the value of the purchasable, downloadable outfits and whatnot. Unfortunately, it also prevents modding altogether. You know, the thing that makes bad games good and good games great. On Nexus Mods, the two most popular downloads for Kill the Justice League are a mod that fixes the frame rate problems and a mod that circumvents Teddy Ruxpin to allow these mods to function in the first place. Worse yet, this Big Brother anti-cheat software is so deeply intrusive and so bare-bustingly broken that it keeps malfunctioning and has prevented players from enjoying Kill the Justice League from time to time over the course of this year. I'm going out on a limb and assuming that the bear is meant to evoke the teddy bear cameras that panicky white suburbanites purchase to spy on the babysitter, lest she take more than one agreed-upon popsicle from the freezer. Next, the game finally loaded. But before I could chuck my boomerangs and batarangs at the skulls of unsuspecting monsters, Kill the Justice League insisted that I sign a document that I'm nearly certain states that I do not own the game that I bought. That I bought a license to play this game. Yeah, I know this whole license thing is kinda standard on Steam and other places that use DRM, but I usually don't have to sign a contract. I don't remember that coming up in many of the other games that I've played, even recently, but those games were indie games and I don't know. Excuse me, Kill the Justice League, but I paid over $3 for this, and that means I own it. If I wanted to play something but not in perpetuity, I would still be playing Asheron's Call. Kill the Justice League then informed me that I am being connected with WB services, and look, I know, if you've been dealing with this for the past few years, this might seem like the oldest and dustiest hat, but the inundation of loosely related but mandatory software and internet connections required to even start this unwieldy behemoth, and feeling this all at once, is striking my very soul and damning me to game hell. Much of this is brand new to me because of those gaps. At long last, after wandering in the desert for 40 years, I have been delivered unto the game in the avatar of Deadshot. The tutorial tutors me, but good, tooting all the way. At times, a tutorial is integrated neatly into the main action of the game. The first bit in Half-Life functions this way. L.A. Noire teaches you how to solve a case by letting you solve a case. The invisible professor of the game teaches you how to play without feeling like you're reading an instruction manual. Kill the Justice League is not that. The game insists upon itself, keeping me after school and telling me how disappointed it is. Worst of all, the tutorial stage takes place in medias res and has no bearing on the flow of the story, you know? So it's not really happening in the middle of the action. It exists in a space between spaces so much that when it ends, the tutorial washes away, insubstantial, and even less seamless than before. I recognize why the developer did this. The tutorial is so lengthy and so unfun that forcing an experienced player to redo the tutorial at the start of the game would be egregious. I get it. If this is their second run, they don't have to do the tutorial. Okay, but that's not the point. That sounds like an excuse for not figuring out a way to integrate the tutorial into the first stage of the game in a way that was fun and didn't feel like a tutorial. There are scads of examples of developers doing just that, even in the era of AAA gaming. Here are some examples on the screen. I am shuttlecocked into a cutscene in Arkham Ass Lumps. I love a good cutscene, and it's a shame that Kill the Justice League doesn't have any. All its cutscenes appear to be in-engine camera tilts that go on for way too long. Close-ups on hideous, almost human character models that, I'm sorry, still bear passports for the uncanny valley. If I wanted to watch a movie, I would, and it definitely would not be starring these characters. The menu screen is an incomprehensible mess of numbers and columns, like a personal notepad written by one of those guys who goes to baseball games and writes down the at-bats. I want to feel joy in my life. I do. I want to accentuate the positive and not sweat even the most minuscule of stuff. Nevertheless, when I open this menu screen, I hate everything in front of me. Why is the inventory column called the loadout? What is the loadout? Who's doing the loading? And what am I loading? For the record, Your Honor, I plead guilty to maining Captain Boomerang. I wanted to be either Harley Quinn or Deadshot, but I found Boomer's traveling mechanism more functional than all the rest. You just throw the boomerang and you go there, like teleportation. The Codex is an archive of characters and references, audio jingles, dictionary jangles, and mostly harmless collectibles for the hoarders among us. Looks, at first glance, might be misplaced and should go along with the inventory column, but nope. Looks is different because you can buy looks. The menu screen is not for your inventory. It's a store or a restaurant. I am reading a restaurant menu. This menu is for selling me things. Never before in all my button mashing experience as a vid kid has a menu screen lived up to its name in such nightmarish, cold accuracy. The literalness, a twist of the knife. I spent far more time than I care to admit trying to figure out how to exit the game. Apparently, rather than allowing me to leave its money-grabbing clutches, the exit is under Squad. I have to go to Squad to find the key to the door that has been locked behind me. If you believe I am exaggerating, peep this. The exit button is purposefully so much smaller. It's a whisper when it should be a shout. It's hidden, as if it were fine print in a mortgage. The next tab reads Battle Pass, an approximate rhyme that strikes my ears, beckoning me inside, only to discover that a Battle Pass is this game's incarnation of a Season Pass. In the past few years, I have predominantly played indie games, and I have not bothered to read the video game journalism websites all that much. A Season Pass in modern AAA video gaming is something I had heard about but had never investigated the meaning. Until now, a Season Pass at a theme park is purchased under the assumption that the buyer will use it enough to make it worth the cost. A Season Pass in a video game apparently works the same way. The game enthusiast buys the Season Pass and gets all the things, the big DLC things, perhaps for a discount when all is said and done. This almost makes sense, except in the most important way that it does not. A Season Pass at Disneyland is purchased by someone with knowledge of what is and is not at Disneyland. A Season Pass purchased for Kill the Justice League is bought on the promise that the game will be good and that the future DLC will be good as well. A Season Pass purchase for a video game is like buying a Disneyland Season Pass a week before its grand opening in 1955. The bizarre brand loyalty that someone must have for Kill the Justice League is not only unfounded, but some manner of last Crusadian leap of faith. I am completely new to this concept in video games, but I'm fairly certain that game enthusiasts have had these criticisms already. Because how could they not, right? The naked scamorama is impossible to miss. I'm just getting shotgun blasted in the face with all these new terms at the same time, so forgive me for being late to the worst party in the world. In the menu screen, yeah, I'm still on this, okay? The Options tab, you know, the actual important stuff, is on the far right of the screen. It's one of the only absolutely necessary tabs on any menu screen, so much that it is often its own button altogether, like Select. On the far left side of the screen is the Squad tab. Remember how the Squad tab is the one that actually allows you to stop playing the game? So what does this mean? The two most important tabs are on the opposite sides of the menu screen, the two tabs that everyone will need to visit. In order to get to the all-important Options menu or to get back over to the important Squad menu, you absolutely must scroll past all the sales pitches. I even get advertisements when I start the game and then more advertisements when I try to press start to enter. It's unavoidable. Someone might exclaim, "So what? You don't have to buy anything." Yes, indeed, you have defeated me with a fact that I already knew, but that misses the emotional core of my desperate wail. Imagine if a vacuum cleaner salesman knocked on your door today and tried to sell you a vacuum cleaner. You politely decline and that's it. Until tomorrow when the vacuum cleaner salesman knocks on your door again. He repeats his sales pitch and you repeat your refusal. This happens every day for weeks, even months. Here's the thing, even if the vacuum cleaner salesman is not actually wearing you down because you don't need a new vacuum cleaner and you can't afford his vacuum cleaner anyway, it's still fucking annoying. It doesn't matter that you don't have to buy it. It just feels weird being sold something all the time, whether you're buying it or not. You told him no, and he's still there every day, even when you threaten him with a firearm. All these sales pitches in the menu screen feel like I'm being sold the game that I already bought. You ever watch a TV show and one of the commercials is for the show that you're already watching? It's like that, but more intrusive than funny. I'm sorry that this far into the video I have barely even talked about how this game plays, but my mountain of complaints about this menu screen and everything connected to it has created an avalanche. I want to play something else. My outlook on life is too purple and ethereal yet corruptible to withstand this much Kill the Justice League without the colors of my world bleeding out and losing saturation. To cleanse myself of the spoiled milk that is the AAA experience, I feasted upon the delicious strawberry pie that is Celeste. I had yet to play this game. It was released in 2018. If you recall, that is within one of the empty spaces in my gaming history. Pressing the buttons, I guessed straight away that I was going to vibe with this more. The weight and kerplumpiness of the platformer is felt in the bones immediately following the first jump. The height of a platformer character's jumps and the time between the apex of height and landing creates the illusion of the heft and substance that the developer is trying to communicate. If the developer programs it just right, the landing is satisfying in a way that's hard to describe but reminds the player of gravity. That's good game feel. Gravity lover Galileo Galilei once said, "Passion is the genesis of genius," although he probably said it with an exaggerated, offensive accent.